Hello and welcome everyone. Thanks for so many people who show up here to my presentation on how Houdini and Multishot workflows push low-budget productions to the next level. My name is Reindl. I am a CG Supervisor at Arx Anima in Vienna. I work with CG since 22 years. I did join Arx Anima 13 years ago, and nowadays my main focus at Arx is on look dev and lighting, and also overseeing multiple projects to find bottlenecks and ways where we can improve on. So for those of you who do not know Arx Anima, we are located in Frankfurt, Leipzig, Madrid, and Vienna. Over time, we did build up a network that allows us by now to produce every part of movie productions by ourselves. Our main focus is full CG movies and animated series, but we also do visual effects, we do commercials, IP development, all sorts of things. So, long story short, here's a glimpse at the work that we do.
Loaded, about to blow, get ready, get set, let's go.
See?
Let's go! Here I come! Locked and loaded, about to blow, get ready, get set.
Thank you. Houdini Multishot workflows and low-budget productions. So let me quickly elaborate what Multishot workflow means, because that word, we hear it all around nowadays. By Multishot workflow, we simply mean that you have a system in place that allows you to make edits in your shot. But instead of this edit is just going to one shot, it will be applied into multitude of shots. So compared to the traditional workflow where you say, okay, you have a single shot workflow, you open a shot, you edit the shot, you open the next shot, you edit that shot, you open the next shot, and so on and so on. So that's basically the difference between a traditional single shot workflow and a multi-shot workflow. The low budget part is the one thing I want to focus first on, because we do get also a lot of feedback at Arx where people tell us that we do things a little bit different here and there, and that is due to the budgets we do operate in. And so let's start with the two things that do drive decisions that we make, how we approach things, how we solve problems, and so on. And the first thing is the scope of the project. So when we say scope, we do mean the size. So, for example, when I started at Arx, we were a really small company. We were like six or seven people, and the projects that we did, they were somewhere around 4 to 8 weeks, and the content was like 30 seconds up to a minute. Nowadays, when we do full CG movies or animated series, we have production times of 2 to 3 years, and the content that's produced varies from 80 minutes all the way up to 9 hours in the case of series. So there is a big difference in the scope of the project, and I want to bring one example, which is for some obvious. That would be a pipeline. where I say you have to choose what you do, because if you produce a pipeline for a big movie or a big project, you design things so everything stays predictable. Everything is how should I say? Predictable, and things move fast along, and you have a tool at your hand that allows you to stay within the budgets and within the deadlines that you're given. And you need that on a big project. On a small scope, it sounds good, but the thing that pipeline is also adding is usually a ramp-up time. And on a big project, when you have like 2 or 3 years of production ahead of you, the ramp-up time doesn't matter too much when you say you have like 2, 3, 4 weeks, whatever, where things run a little bit slow. On the smaller project, that would be the entire production time, and you would just slow down the entire thing. So that's one example where you say, okay, how do you approach things on a small scope, on a big scope? And the second part, which is the more important one, is, of course, the budget. So budget is difficult. Budget is sneaky. Budget is backstabby. And usually, especially as an artist, you don't really have a relationship with the budget, because, at least for me, when I heard, yeah, we have like big budgets or low budgets, it didn't really tell me anything. What actually should I change, or how should I behave different? No idea. And I want to try to enlighten you today a little bit more on how budget does affect a TV show, and also what role Houdini plays with that. So I want to tell you a little story that brings me back about 10 years ago, where Arx Anima did get the first big show greenlit. It was an animated series back then. And so we did, I was told, oh yeah, we have now 2 years ahead of us. We have to produce 9 hours of content, and we have a low budget. So that was the information I had, which was awesome. What could possibly go wrong? But I understood 9 years, 2 years and 9 hours of content, which was scary. But again, this whole low budget thing, no idea really what exactly this means in my day-to-day work. How should I change things? What needs to be done different? Also, how are going to do 6 people like 9 hours of content? So, yeah. But it didn't take long until we got our CG Supervisor, and I had a conversation with him about budget. And I wanted to know about budget, and he told me, yeah, he did have the exact same budget that we have for this project. The only difference is, so he did have the exact same budget on projects that he worked before, with the one that we have here. With the only difference that on those other projects where he had that budget, it was the budget of their catering. And he wasn't kidding, so it was literally the case. That did kind of do something with me. Well, because, if you're an artist, and you always want to do those great things, and back then I had things in my mind Lord of the Rings with trolls and Transformers and all that stuff. And then you hear that you are kind of working on a catering budget, and the only thing I could think of at this moment was bagels and donuts. And that's kind of, yeah, okay, this is the world I live in now. But it made it a little bit more real for me to understand, okay, we are having bagels and donuts as a budget for our amazing TV show or animated series. So, how do you move forward from there? Because, small studio, and all of a sudden, this big project, and of course, nobody of us had any idea really how to do anything in this big scope. And what you gonna do? So we were thinking, okay, let's see what other people do, let's look in the internet, let's try to get as much information in as possible that's helping us to make as little mistakes as possible. And this brings me to common beliefs or unwritten rules that you find in our industry that we did follow also already in the small scope, but some of them are like misleading, some of them are wrong, can be misunderstood. Let's look on some of those rules that we found that we thought at the time, yeah, it's really good to do that. So the first one would be you pick the best tool for the job. Software is just a tool, and the artist is doing the art. You need artistic freedom. That's a funny one. Houdini is just for technical people. Please don't hate me. I have to say, that's the only one we ignored, but we will get to that one. And you should never change a running system. So those are the things that were like, okay, it makes sense, we can live with that, and it has to happen on bagels and donuts. Okay, so let's focus on the first three ones. So you pick the best tool for the job, software is just a tool, and you need artistic freedom, because those are essentially the ones that also kind of define the industry we are in, because we all create art, and making things look nice is kind of our job and more or less the most important thing that we can do. So, what are our conclusions to those three things? So we ended up saying, okay, we do pick the best tool that allows us to do most, if not the entire job. Because if you just pick the best tool for the job, you end up choosing tools which might not be in your pipeline. And if you are on a bigger production, it also means, okay, you all of a sudden introduce a tool that not one person has to learn, but maybe, who knows, 5, 10, 20 people. And also, if you pick a tool and introduce this to your workflow, you have a pipeline. Then pipeline also has to integrate the tool into your workflow, and further down the line, you also have to support the tool. And yeah, I mean, the thing with pipeline support is they also need bagels and donuts, which, yeah, they are spare nowadays. So we end up now, okay, we try to choose tools wisely and see if we can use one tool for a lot of things. Before we add a tool, we evaluate the effort of implementation and support, because not every tool is that easily adaptable as another tool, pipeline-wise speaking now. We hire artists now by their skills and not what DCC they are used to. We always kind of try to, I mean, it makes sense to try to find people that know the software you're using, but ultimately it doesn't matter really, because you are not good because you use Maya or Blender or whatever. You're good because you learned, you did train your eye, you learned how 3D works, and in the end, the DCC doesn't matter that much. And that's something that also we had to learn, that more focus really on the person itself and their skills, and the DCC, you will just learn whatever you're given. It's not that big of a deal. Speaking of customization, we try to customize as little as possible. That's funny in context of a pipeline that you build. The whole thing is, the more you customize, the more resources you have to spend on your pipeline, and the more you customize, the more stuff people have to learn, the more stuff you have to support. So this thing, it always blows up and up and up and up. And you guessed it, bagels and donuts. And the last one is probably the hardest thing you can ever learn or deal with. That's finishing the project is more important than the look of the project, which is a kind of a funny thing to say if you are working in an industry where you literally produce art. So, put it like this. On bagels and donuts, you really have to put a stop. So you really have to say, okay, we go this far and then we stop. Even we know we could make it better, but you have this limitation of the resources, and you really need to learn to say stop, okay, this far and not further. And that's a really hard thing to do. But that's, from my point of view, I think the absolute most important thing that you have to learn to really understand where are the boundaries that you can work in. So, Houdini is only for technical people. I think everybody here heard that one, or? So I did tell you that we ignored this from the get-go. And the reason was, back then when we did get this animated series greenlit, we were thinking, okay, how are we going to do it? What do we need to do? And we did came to the conclusion that, okay, we will need some sort of multishot workflow for us to be able to produce this thing. And the only thing we could think of at that time was Houdini. And we were anything but Houdini experts back then. We used Houdini like 3 or 4 times. That was it. But we did realize that first of all, it wasn't really that hard to learn. And the more important thing, the thing we did learn, like, okay, once we did like some model, the other time we did some grooming, the other time we did some effects or so on. And every time we did something in Houdini, we could always reuse the knowledge that we had from before, because we realized that in the end, all Houdini is points, prims, and attributes. And when you understand that concept, you kind of know Houdini. And therefore, relatively easy to learn. That sounds very good. The other thing was this whole aspect of, oh yeah, Houdini is node-based. I guess that's also something that throws off a lot of people, because when you learn a 3D software and it's not Houdini, you work in a completely different way usually. And this whole node-based thing, you just have to wrap your head around it or rewire your brain a little bit. And once you have that, you're good to go. And we noticed with node-based workflows, you're not limited to one thing in your scene. So I can work on one asset, I can work on 100 assets in the same file. I can work on one shot, I can work on 100 shots, because you have this node-based approach. And if you're thinking now that, hey, why didn't you use like Katana or whatever? Back then, it was like 10 years ago. Clarice just released, and we didn't know any person that ever used it. And when you were going to the Foundry homepage, searching for Katana, it literally says, if you are interested, please contact us. So that was all the information we had about the software. And yeah, we were not brave enough to say like, let's go for it. So Houdini. And we started using it. We did start building a multishot workflow. We also succeeded. So it took us a bit. We had 2 devs working for 8 months. But we did build a multishot workflow with Houdini and Mantra back then that we did use for several years. And we did train people in it. And the thing, we realized, yeah, Houdini is for technical people, but Houdini is for everyone. And that's kind of a core thing for us nowadays, because Houdini is very important to us in our day-to-day business. And I just want to, this Houdini is only for technical people, that's, So, what are our conclusions now in terms of Houdini? Because I said before, what we changed or what we realized, and I also realized, or we realized after some time, that Houdini actually fits nice into this. So if you say you pick the tool which allows you to do most, if not the entire job, I mean, you can do an entire production in Houdini. You would not need another tool. I'm not saying that we don't use other tools, but Houdini fits in there, so it's really nice. Before adding a tool and evaluate, we evaluate the effort and implementation and support. Houdini and Pipeline, those two are really good friends. So it's really easy to add Houdini to a workflow. Hire artists by the skills and not the TCC. Yeah, so over the years now, I don't know how many artists we had that didn't even open Houdini or didn't even have Houdini open before, and we hired them anyway. And it took them, I don't know, 1-2 weeks, not really a long time, and they were just producing output like everyone else. It's like you don't have to learn the entire software, you just have to learn your task, and that's really fast. So that's not a problem at all. You customize as little as possible, to allow common workflows, and you might even find on YouTube. Yeah, Houdini is the king of customization, so the entire software is built on you customize whatever you want with it. So that's amazing. Yeah, finishing the project is more important than the look. I mean, Houdini does help you a little bit on the look side, but it doesn't give you bagels and donuts, so it's still a, yeah. Okay, so to our last point, never change a running system. Also, I think that's also something everybody heard before, and I agree and disagree with it. I agree with it because, of course, you start to build your pipeline, you start to build your workflows, and everything that's proven to work out, you want to stick to that because, if you do this, this, and this, you can finish your project. On the other hand, I think this also is a little bit of a relic from an old time, because back then, technology did not move as fast as it does today. And the best example is USD now, which gives you a boost. And it doesn't matter how fast your system is, if there's simply a new technology coming out that's simply faster than the fastest thing you could go. So, yeah. I want to show a few things here from 2 productions that we had. It's the Elfkins movies. So there are a few images. The top row, so the top 2 ones are always from the Elfkins 1 movie, and the bottom 2 ones are always from the Elfkins 2 movie. And I want to show those because on the second movie, there is a little bit more visual fidelity in there. It pops a bit more. It looks overall a little bit better. And the reason why I show it is because the first movie, we joined that pretty late in production, so we sadly could not use our Houdini mantra workflow on it. But the first movie was this traditional single-shot workflow. And the second movie was our current multi-shot workflow. And there are some technical specs for it. So the first one was done with Maya for lighting. We used Alembic for data exchange, and rendered it was with V-Ray. And the second one is done with Solaris in lighting. The entire production used USD as data exchange, and it was rendered with Karma XPU. And the interesting, 2 very interesting parts of that is, on the first movie, we did have scene opening times from around 10 minutes. So you imagine you come in the morning into the office, and you boot up your machine, you tell Maya, hey, load this shot, and then you're off getting a bagel. And when you come back, your shot hopefully loaded. If not, you probably go and get a donut. On the second movie, the loading times are around 7 seconds, between 7 and 10 seconds. It's quite an improvement. And the only thing that really changed was technology in the background. Also, on the first movie, the throughput was very interesting. So the entire lighting department needed to achieve a throughput of 40 shots per week. And that was really rough to do. So that was around 6 shots a week per artist. On the second movie, however, now we are up to 20 shots per artist in 1 week. And they are not as stressed out as they were in the first movie. It's a big point, especially if you're in lighting. And that's really something that's, you know, if you just change a system in the background and all of a sudden you like triple your output, that's kind of a big deal. And this whole thing why I say never change a running system. We could have chosen, you know, 5 years ago when we switched to Solaris and USD. So when Side Effects released Solaris, we could have said, yeah, maybe let's make a slow, smooth transition because Mantra is still around today. And we could have said, oh yeah, let's just keep our multi-shot system as it is. And I mean, I know I said we didn't use it on this one production, but I can tell you it still wasn't as fast as Solaris with USD is today. And I think it was a really good choice that we made, that we say, okay, we abandoned the system that we had, even though it took us some time to build, and jump on this new technology and, well, rebuild the system there. So, therefore, in my opinion, you should sometimes change a running system. So, since this is a Houdini talk, and I'm talking now for 30 minutes and showing you like text, let's look a little bit into Houdini, especially our multi-shot workflow, how our current state is. So I did record here a small video where you see this is how our how our setup looks like. So we expose all the shots and so everything there. And I'm just now switching through the shots. So you just saw me scrubbing around in the timeline. Everything like gives you real-time feedback. And when you switch a shot, it takes a few seconds. And then again, you can scrub in the timeline and it gives you all the feedback. By the way, there are low FPS because I did record this with a remote login on my machine. So usually artists have around 60 FPS. So yeah, and now I just add a layer, and I will simply turn off our sky system and then apply this edit to multiple shots. One thing you might have noticed, or you might be surprised, it might not look like you expected it to look like. Because during our research on what most people do with Solaris and how other companies do it with Solaris, this multi-shot approach, we realized that many people or many studios kind of have this approach with you have like a single node stream and you do your edits in this node stream affecting different shots within that. And then at the end, you kind of just decide at submission, at the time when you submit, you decide what shot the setup should be for. And yeah, so you see me, I'm just clicking through and you can see it down here. The sky is indeed turned off in all the various shots there. So, yeah, let's talk about this now a bit. So I mentioned that most, not all of them, but most people or studios that we saw have this like single node approach, single node stream approach. And we did play around with that. We looked around and we saw, and we didn't like it too much because of 3 reasons. The first reason was when you have like, in here, I mean, I haven't counted it, but there are around 60 or 70 shots in that scene, in that HIP file. And when you have like a bunch of shots, like really a lot of shots in one HIP file, and you have one node stream, and you make like an edit here and an edit there, and all the way down, you really have to behave and you know follow rules to not create like a mess and make the whole thing rather hard to read. And furthermore, if you run into a problem that you cannot solve, you have to usually give it to another person, and then they have to like find out where are all the edits and what node is actually affecting which shot. We didn't really like that too much. The other thing was performance. So I'm pretty sure everyone who worked with Solaris did maybe run here and there into the issue that they started to set up things, and all of a sudden you like build up cooking time. And in the end, like every mouse click you do, like all of a sudden you have to wait 2-3 seconds, who knows, sometimes a minute. So performance is a big thing for us. And we figured that if you have like one single node stream, it's a little bit difficult. It's not impossible, there are like cache nodes and stuff, but it's not that straightforward to deal with performance if you have one big node stream. And the third reason why we decided against it was from the Houdini mantra system that we had that we used on the animated series. Back then, we also had this structure where we could do edits, and we did those edits rather granular, and we could reuse edits, meaning that you worked on one episode, everything is done and approved. Then you move on to the next episode and you realize, oh, hey, there is an environment. I already did it in this episode. Well, copy pasta over the edits, and the environment is done because you already did it there. And we didn't really see a nice way to handle that if you have a single node stream. And this is why we said, okay, we do want to have that same approach where all the edits, they can be made granular and also be reused. And because from back then we knew we had literally situations where we had an entire episode lit by a single artist because it was so similar to stuff we did before that you didn't need more people to light the episode because you just copy over stuff and you're done with it. So that did lead us to this setup we have here. We were thinking, what should we do? And Houdini USD already comes actually with a solution because USD is already layer-based. So there's already a workflow in place to store edits, load edits. So we said, okay, let's use the USD layers for our edits. And the first thing that popped into our minds was, okay, you actually do not really want to expose artists to layer management in USD. The second thing that popped into our mind, let's do it anyway and just make it easy. And the fun thing is, it wasn't too hard, the surprising thing. So Solaris has a lot of tools already in place that didn't make this too hard. So this is what you see here now. So every single backdrop that you see there is actually a USD layer, apart from this gray area here. That's just our entry point for pipeline where we just load every single layer of the departments that came before. But you see here we have those red backdrops. Those are just global edits that affect everything. We have those blue ones, which are sequence-based edits. We have the yellow ones, which are the actual shots. Those purple ones, they are our render farm layers. So this is really literally the last thing that collects everything and creates a USD file that can actually produce pixels in the farm. We have the green ones, which are our render passes, and then we have this rather chaotic thing here, which are just edits the artists did create. And let's actually look how this works, because you did see me before clicking around and there was stuff popping up. And I told you, we try to minimize the customizations that we add. So this whole thing starts with, we open the Houdini tab menu and we just say, hey, add a layer, and you're greeted with this thing here. And all you have to do as an artist is say, hey, I give my layer a name, I give my layer a prefix that's defined by the pipeline. You can choose a different name for an insertion point if you want to. And for the brave ones among us, they can actually say, hey, do not add a layer break. I want to daisy chain my layers. And if you do all of that, well, you're greeted with this here. And that thing here is simply representing a USD layer. So you see you have at the top with the merge node, there is your entry point, then there is this layer break. In between here is where your edits go. Here is then actually the Houdini insertion point. Here is another custom node that we made. And then we have our null node, which marks the output of the layer. And this custom node that we made is simply an extension of the already existing configure layer node in Houdini. So you see, this is the actual configure layer node, and up here we just added a way to do caching and also say we want to cache out a certain frame range. And by the way, this is our solution for performance. Since everybody adds edits now into layers, and you realize, okay, this layer now takes like 5 seconds to cook. Okay, you just save it to disk, you load it from disk, and it's back to like 0 cooking time. Quite straightforward and easy, and you see, I mean, all the stuff we do here are basic Houdini nodes. It's not really that much that we customize there. So how do we add now the layer? We did add an entry to the right-click menu in the merge node and the switch node. So when you click on the merge node, you can say, hey, fetch me a node. And this gives you this left window. If you do the same thing on the switch node, it gives you this right window. And all you have to do is choose which null node you load, because there's also this, I don't know, call it unwritten rule or call it agreement among all Houdini artists around the world that you mark your output with a null node. And we just took that and say, okay, our null nodes in Solaris just mark a layer now. And that's literally what we do. We just list null nodes and you choose whatever layer you want to load and you load it. On the switch node, you see there is this choose context. So we do use the Houdini context. If you don't know that, look it up. It's an amazing system in Houdini. And the context is just simply driving certain things like the render path or what shot, or artists can even set up their own context if they want to. Or for example, render settings. We have like preview and final render settings, and we can drive that via the context to easily choose what we want to render. And yeah, when you click enter, it just loads in the layer. Good. Then I was talking about this purple one, which is simply our output, the final output that we send off to the farm. And I show this because this is the only one that actually looks different. But you see, we have the merge node. The left input is the shot. The right input is literally just the render path layer that we load on top of it. And then we have here just a node to set the path where the render file goes, and then we have one single custom node down there where the artist doesn't have to do anything. That's just writing some metadata we use in our pipeline onto the XR file. And that's it. Off it goes to the farm. So, last thing, our scene manager. So you did see me clicking around when I was switching shots. That's the right thing there. And I think that's the most complex tool we created for our multi-shot workflow. And again, it's a super straightforward thing. All this thing really is just an Excel sheet where each row just represents a ROP node. And all we can do there is configure the ROP node. So you can see we can define frame ranges here. We can define Houdini context. We can unhide more columns to like whatever we want to do in shot grid, whatever we want to set up for deadline. You can change some karma settings. So it's really just configuring whatever you want to submit and render. And in the end, you say, okay, you submit it to the farm, and off you go. And that's literally the entire Multishot workflow that we have built in Solaris. And every one of you could now actually do lighting at Arx if you want to. That's how simple we kind of try to keep things. The cool thing is that it's really flexible. So we are already forging plans to implement like Copernicus here. We do want to move forward and also implement the Houdini clones there. Also for the scene opening times, we do have payloads set up in our assets, but we don't use them. So those 7 seconds, we can even shrink them. It's really a nice, robust thing to have that, you know, okay, you're using a tool that allows you to quickly customize stuff and gives you so many options. So how does now Houdini and Multishot workflows push low-budget productions to the next level? Well, you do iterate faster, which does allow you to improve the look of your show within the same budget. You have it very easy to keep consistency over sequences, because that's always a classic that you like look at individual shots and you like them, and when you see them in a sequence, all of a sudden you don't like them. And in the Multishot workflow, this is something, that problem doesn't even exist anymore, because you work on the entire thing at the same time and you always see it in context. It's actually easy to learn to Houdini workflows. So I keep saying that, but Houdini is actually a tool which is really easy to learn. Customizations are easy to implement. I keep saying that we don't want to customize a lot, but the thing with Houdini is you do not rely on pipeline for customizations. Since Houdini is built with, okay, you customize it, it's like at its core, every artist is capable of customizing and like changing whatever they need to change so it fits their workflow. And the last thing, that's why Houdini is so much loved by technical people. If you run into rather complex problems, if you use Houdini, they become a little bit easier to solve. And this is why I named it like Houdini and Multishot workflows, because we learned that, I know it's a common thing, DCC, you know, the tool doesn't really matter, but Houdini is a tool that makes things a lot easier. And if you are on a tight budget, you know, bagels and donuts, then you want to use tools that bring you to your goal really quick, and you don't want to spend hours and hours or days and days trying to solve really complex problems. You really have to go through really quick with everything. And yeah, that's basically the conclusion that we reached at Arx Anima. So yeah, I want to thank you again for being here and yeah, listening to me for all that time. And a big surprise, we are hiring. So if you are interested still joining at Arx Anima, so please visit arxanima.com/career or follow us on our various social media pages. And who knows, maybe we will meet each other soon in Vienna or any other or in any other of our locations. And yeah, with that, I will give the word back to Chris, because I guess we have a little time for Q&A.
Very cool. Any questions for Hannes? If you want to apply now, you can do that over the microphone. Yeah. Questions? Going once, going twice. Thanks very much, Hannes. Thank you. Great work.
Thank you.